Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Debbie and I'm a mixed media artist. And I love all sorts of art materials. It's quite the passion. Some people might say mania. Gosh, well, at least you know I'm not AI. I've made mistakes. AI doesn't make mistakes. Thank goodness we can still tell ourselves apart. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Welcome to my channel, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And if you like what you see here, do consider joining me on Patreon, where there are a whole lot more videos there for you to enjoy and other resources as well, community, the whole lot. Right, well, it's been quite a while since we've done a favourite five, and a couple of months ago, beginning of this year, 2025, we're in now if you're watching this in the future, I did a video about the art materials that I regretted buying, and one of the real surprises, both for me and for everybody else, that I regretted was super granulating watercolours. Let me just grab, if I possibly can make, without tipping anything over and making a massive noise, let me grab one of the boxes. These are a Schmincke product and they're super granulating. They come in these cute little boxes and you get 5 nice colours per box, which is nice. Not the cheapest, but they do go a long way. And I was surprised to find out that I bought them all, naturally. I have full set syndrome, and we have a support group over on Patreon if you're the same. There are a lot of us out there. I bought the whole lot and then realised that it had been millennia since I got them out of the drawer and looked at them. So they went into my art supplies that I regretted buying video, and like I said, everybody was surprised. I was surprised. I still love them. I'm a texture fiend, so I absolutely love the textures that they give, but I tend not to reach for them very often. And the main reason for that is because when I paint, I cover stuff up, because I start with a substrate. It might be easier if I show you rather than tell. Let me see if I can grab a sketchbook. This one, yes, I was working in this one last night, so this one will do just nicely. I start off by using a substrate of some sort. This is a jelly print, this one. This has got pan pastel. Here's some watercolour that I snuck in the back. The rest is a lot of gouache. Then I cover it up with more textures and inks. There's coloured pencil. Basically everything your art shop can supply is going on in my work. Here's another one. I thought it's such a pity to have something that granulates so beautifully, and I really love it, and then cover it all up with all this other. But I can't stop myself from covering it up either. As you can see, there are quite a few problems going on here. This one's got ink, like I said, pan pastel in the background in the water, and then inks over the top of that, and coloured pencils and more inks and something else I found in a drawer, all the sorts of things, and they all go in to these pictures. And this is how I like to create. So this is the sort of thing I teach as well. This was last night's, I think. Yeah, it's the 14th of March now. So yes, 13th of March, last night. And it's just such a pity. So I tend to just leave them in the drawer thinking, well, you know, they will go off, but not quickly. I've got some art products in my drawers that I have had for more than 25 years. I'm not joking. In fact, some of them may be even older than that. So I put them onto my things I shouldn't have bought list. But if you've watched that video, you'll notice at the end that I also said that I wasn't just going to give in to that and get rid of them. I was going to try to learn to love them, because I've paid for them and I loved them once. I mean, some of the things I've bought because I've watched somebody else using, and I'm thinking, you know, I really love that. I'm going to have a go at that. Then I don't, because it's not really an authentic buy. It's something that someone else told me that I wanted. You know how it is. We've all been there. So we're going to do a little sketch today. Famous fives. I knew I'd do it one day. Any Enid Blyton readers out there of my age group? Not famous five, favourite five. Normally what I do is I pick 5 of my favourite colour and I allow myself one honourable mention just because it's quite difficult to stick to 5 sometimes. So that's just something I allow myself. So these have come from all the different sets. We've got Desert Green, Forest Grey, Haze Blue, Vulcan Red, Tundra Green and Haze Black. And the Forest, Desert, Haze, Vulcan, Tundra, etc. That's the set. This one's the Forest set. And, you know, you get the forest colours. So what I normally do with my favourite 5s is to swatch them out for you and then do a little sketch. So I've got a new book here. It's a bit lumpy. Experiment here again. I use this experiment to use some watercolours. There are some in there. There's also collage, and it's a pop-up as well. So, yeah, something that I'm going to do with my patrons very soon is a pop-up sketchbook thing. We do a niche Thursday where I do weird sorts of videos that other people, you know, not everybody might like, but just in case somebody does, I put them in on a Thursday. So that works. So pop-up's one of them. So it's quite lumpy, but we're just going to swatch on that side. So I have a round brush and I have some water. First up is Desert Green. And these have dried a little bit, which is all right. I love watercolour because you can re-wet it. And you can already see there that when you wet it, it reveals its colours to you and it will granulate. So I love that. That is suitably dirty and dear to my heart. I'm a muted colour person. I don't think that I would ever use a Barbie pink. If you ever see me doing it, it is a cry for help. And please act on it. Call somebody. Forest Grey. That was Desert Green. This one's Forest Grey. As you can see, some of them are champion granulators. And even on this quite smooth paper, I'm working in a Hahnemühle Nostalgia sketchbook, which is lovely and smooth because for mixed media, you don't want too much texture in the paper because when you come in with things like ink and coloured pencil, it just doesn't work. This one's Haze Blue. Some of them granulate better than others, I'm not going to lie. But they all do quite a good job. That Desert Green, that first one, that's a particularly nice one. And they're just lovely. Gosh, I hope I've given myself enough room. I have 6, that should work on the page. This is my little A6 sketchbook because I wasn't sure. I bought it for the pop-up one, actually. And then I used up my Stillman and Burn that I normally do the favourite 5s in. We'd finished that one and I wasn't going to buy another one because it was quite expensive. So it's going to share this book now, which I'm absolutely positive that you can forgive me for that. Tundra Green. I will go through these at the end. And the last one is Haze Black. So let's give those a bit of a chance. They need some water to get their granulation happening. Right, I'm going to dry those and then I'll come back and we can talk about them. Right, so favourite 5 is a little bit of a weird one actually because it's my favourite 5 colours for painting this sort of scene. And I'm going to paint something with water in it because I'm having a bit of a water fetish at the moment. If I chose to paint something else, like a cat, I almost certainly wouldn't choose green or red or blue. So black it is. It depends what you're painting as to what's favourite 5. And I could keep going with the same thing for everything you can think of. I mean, you probably wouldn't want to paint a human with any of these either, if I ever did want to paint a human. Another cry for help there. So, oh, excuse me, voice is really deep and just getting over a touch of the plague. Everybody's had it at the minute. I think it's just a time of year thing. So I do apologise. Yeah, so what we've got here is we have Desert Green. And as I showed you on the thing here, on the palette here, sorry about the glare, you can see it just wants to granulate super quickly. And it's a favourite because you get two greens in one and you get the texture that I'm loving and that is dear to my heart without too much effort. The next one is Forest Grey. Again, muted grey. Love that. You can just do so much with that colour grey. And then when you bring coloured pencils in and inks and things like that, that's exactly what I've done in these books. And like I said, I'm trying to love these. Probably, I told myself that I could use them all up. And if I still am ambivalent about them, I don't need to buy them again. But by then, I'll probably love them and buy them in bulk. Next one is Haze Blue. It's a more subtle granulation than that one. Some of them are very, very subtle, some of them not. And like I said, this is smooth paper, so you won't get the granulation you might possibly get on watercolour paper, but I need the smoothness for the following sort of layers, so I had to make a compromise. And it's good because, as you can see, it does, this is super smooth, but it still granulates as the quality would suggest. It's pretty easy to get on with. Vulcan Red, it's an interesting texture, which is what it's all about. It almost provides the texture that you would expect to see on a really rough cold pressed watercolour paper without being a really rough cold pressed watercolour paper, so you get the best of both worlds. You need plenty of water to do it with though, which of course dilutes the colour somewhat, but then I tend to use these watercolours as if it was gouache, so quite thickly, but then when you give me a palette of gouache, I'll use it like watercolour and water it right down. So there's just no pleasing me. There's obviously a very important screw loose, so yeah, we're going with it for now. This one is very, very similar to the Forest Grey. This one is Tundra Green. I still love it though, because it's enough different. It's nice. There's brilliant English there. And Haze Black, finally. The Haze Black is good for detail work and good for the, rocks that I have intended in here. So with all that, let us get on with the sketch. I'll just grab a piece of paper and my brush. I'm just using a number 8 round brush. We'll get some water on here. I don't, like I said, I don't reach for these as much as I really should. I'm going to do something quite weird and use grey in the sky. It's a greeny grey actually. It could go either way. A little bit of black as well. Get some moodiness in there. This paper is good for all sorts of media. However, it doesn't appreciate my addiction to mixed media and lots of water and things like that. So, we're just going to have to agree to differ on that, and it can do as it's told. Loving that already because of that nice granulation. Just going to put... It's nice because it stops me from fussing, and I have to remember to leave highlights, which I don't normally, because I work best from dark to light and I put my highlights in last. That, even though I think, as in common with most people, I learnt with watercolours because they were a nice cheap thing for a child to learn with back in the day. But I went on to acrylic then because I preferred it, and spent a lot of years using acrylic, which has led me to do things in that sort of slightly backwards idea of putting the highlights in last compared to watercolour, but I still prefer it. And I think that's the whole point of art practice. When we talk about art, we talk about art practice as in we never set an end date for ourselves. We don't say, I'm now an artist, I've learned everything there is to know and I'm just going to crack on. That's not how art works. Art is a practice, and I'm very aware that I'll be doing it forever and learning something new every day, usually what not to do or why something's tipped over. That's my usual thing. But, it's not a finite thing where we learnt it and we just get on. Right, leave that water and try not to put my hand in it because cleverly, once again, I've done everything backwards. Tundra Green next. put some colour on, trying to remember to give it some room to granulate. And that's really important with these. You've got to put enough water on and you've got to give it room. And then it will do exactly what you want it to do. This one isn't going to let me down. I know it's granulating on the palette, so it's going to do fine on the paper. And which means that I can sort of move it around. I don't want wishy-washy because I'm planning to add other things to this. But I can move this around and give it plenty of texture. And then it'll give me more texture in return by granulating all over the place. And we're all happy. Just some rocky bits in here. I'm not a ladylike painter where I just dab delicately at everything. I mean, I like colour, but I don't like shocking bright colours. I like muted colours. And yeah, I'm never going to sit there with my watercolours quietly painting. Right, there's that. What I might do, actually got some colour on there, what I might do is use it. It's black, it doesn't matter. You can have some black down here as well, because we wouldn't need to have a lighthouse if there weren't any rocks to run into. If you happen to be in a ship, which I'm guessing you're not, but anyway. A bit of texture on there. As you can see, where I've put the water, even just charging with water will get everything happening, which is nice. Right, it's time to dry again. In the meantime, the reason I'm doing that is because I will put my hands in this and smudge it everywhere. So I'm going to dry it and I shall return when I have. And look at this palette. Isn't that neat and tidy? And if you saw my gouache box, let me just show you because it's really worth seeing. Sorry for reaching across the camera there, but this is what I'm capable of when I get going. And I never wash this because it's got all my favourite colours and I just mix them as I go. So yeah, that's what this is worth showing everybody, as you can see. Right, so we've got a little picture happening here. Let's now, I might just trade down a brush or two. I'll go down to a 3 so that I can put some small details in here. Start with black for the top here. And remember, it's not gouache, so give it room. That's the main thing. If you learn anything from today, you have to give these paints room because they want to granulate and they can't if it's too thick or too dry. We can also layer a little bit. Remember, when you're doing this, you need to dry each layer because wet on wet blends, wet on dry layers. So otherwise you end up with a mess. You may invent some new colours, but if that's not what you wanted to do, then it's not a happy accident every single time. Let's put a black roof on there as well. Got a little building there. That will do very nicely. Then usually these lighthouses have got a bit of red somewhere, and I thought that a nice pop of red would be good. I get into moods with subjects. At the moment I want to paint water on everything. So I thought, well, it's a small extent from there to go to watercolour and strike while that iron's hot. And I'm in quite a lighthouse mood as well. So very easy to combine the two. Add a bit extra. There's a limit to how much you can add until it's dry. Like I said, it'll just blend together if you do wet on wet. that's probably, let's have a look at that black. That might be ready to do some more. Yeah, just a little bit there, not that much. That's a bit of a blob. And a little bit there. Don't really want it to run together with the red, and it will, because I have no patience. Right, and I'm also adding a little bit to these rocks here because they're dry and I can build up the colour a bit. Actually, while I've got this, actually no, I will go to the bigger brush for that. Just add a bit more to the sea. If you're worried about, I mean, another one of the buzzwords around at the moment, and there always seems to be one, is painting loose or painting tight or anything like that. And everybody wants to paint a lot looser. I really don't. I like detail, as you've seen from a few bits there that I showed you in my other sketchbook. I don't want to paint just a swipe of colour and have everybody wondering what it is. I'm quite content to put detail into my work. But if you are concerned about that, one of the easiest ways around it is to simply trade up to a larger brush, because you can't paint detail with a brush this size. Not unless you're painting it on a wall, of course, in which case that's considered a small brush. It is all very relative. Right, this needs another dry. Managed to put some paint on there, water on there. I'm not going to do anything else to the sky. I'm going to dry that off, and then I'm going to come back in, and I use my craft heat tool here that I use for my card making. You can use a hairdryer too, or go off and make a cup of tea and let it dry by itself, just to get that to dry, and then I can come back in with other things. What I tend to do now is I'll come back in with coloured pencil and then inks. Now when it feels warm, or room temperature at the very least, it's dry as a rule. Normally I dry both sides because these good quality papers do tend to hold the water. But if it's anywhere that's cool, it is not dry. Okay, let us start. Another favourite at the moment is my Derwent Light Fast Warm Earth. I adore this colour, and I'm just going to use it here to give a little bit of colour and interest to the building. And here again, it must be pointed out that this video is not about how one uses super granulating colours in watercolour, because you would be well served to go to a proper watercolour artist for that. This video is how I use them, and how I use them in mixed media, because that's kind of important. Swap to black. Window there as a rule. Let's put some windows here, and maybe one there. I'm not going to do any of the fine details with coloured pencil, but while I've got black, I can deepen these rocks a little bit. Yeah, so if you have tuned into this for a traditional watercolour tutorial, I am terribly sorry. You've not come to the right place. You probably need somebody who does pure watercolour. I use these as mixed media, and this is how I would use them. I quite often will go back and forth. For example, here I'm going to go back to grey and the very large brush and just put some colours over the top, because in my world that's okay. My world allows me to break all the rules, even if somebody says, oh, you're not supposed to do that with watercolour. I know. It's why I decided to go off-piste and be a mixed media artist. I don't have to worry about the rules. Just adding a little bit of red, just beef up the colour slightly. Dig a few holes there. I don't care. It's an old watercolour. It's an old lighthouse. It's got holes in it. Now, with this, I don't think I'd touch that at all because it's actually fine. I don't think I'd touch the water at all. It's also fine. You can, if you want to, come back in with some white pencil. Actually, I wouldn't bother. You might get some texture back here. Apart from that, you'll get absolutely nothing. What we need to look at now is what we're going to do for this bit here. So first thing, I mean, this is where it all goes wrong for me because I'm now going to cover some of this up. And I really don't want to, but I do want to add some different sort of colours in here for the grasses and lichen and try and see if we can get it to be see-through at the same time. As you can see, I'm using the pencils on their side because that allows me to do a couple of things. And the most important thing it allows is it allows me to glaze. And what glazing is effectively is usually done with a liquid, quite often done with markers and pens. Watercolour's a great glazing thing, but it allows you to paint over something and still see what's there underneath. For example, your windows are considered to be glazed, and ideally windows are transparent. You can see through them, not much point otherwise. And I can sort of do that with this by using, instead of using it like a pencil, excuse me, I can use it on its side and still see some of what's underneath. So what I'm just trying to do here is to introduce a bit of colour. This one's forest, don't light fast, and then I had a black, there was a Caran d'Ache black down here and a Caran d'Ache green ochre, which is one of my favourites. But I'm still covering that lovely colour and I don't want to. So what I'll probably do is just do this for a bit and then stop and leave it so that it's got a bit of both. Lovely textures, but a bit of both. Because that can also work. What we will do instead is move that, get my Indian ink out in my dip pen and see if we can't, right, that had to slide down naturally. Right. Bit of black ink on my dip pen. You can use a marker for this, but since finding my father's dip pens in a chest at Christmas, which he used back in the day, I've been using those almost exclusively. Let's give them a door so they can get in. It's probably helpful. Don't need for very much. I'm not going to do very much. There isn't much to do. I tend to make lines for the fun of it. Don't need to. That was literally it. That is all that is required. And put my lid back on that because that will go everywhere otherwise. Yeah, so this is, you can see the struggle, I'm pretty sure. That I would love to do more to this, but I don't want to because, as you can see here, there's some wonderful textures and beautiful granulations where I allowed the paint some room to spread its wings and do what it's supposed to do. In the sky, you don't need to bring this all the way down to the horizon. Proper watercolour artists know that you use the white of the paper as your highlights. For me, because I'm not a proper watercolour artist, I'm a mixed media artist, I can still do the same. And you will have noticed back there that while it was wet, I scrunched up a piece of paper towel and lifted the clouds out like that, which that works really, really well. And you can just leave it. It'll dry and it will be fine. The bit that's got colour here, but a little bit of room to move, will granulate. The rest will just stay white. And one thing with watercolour that can look quite amateurish, I find, and the reason I find it is because I've done it plenty of times, is if you try to colour in everything, right up to every single line, it looks better if you leave some white. Leave the looseness. This medium is a beautiful medium by itself, and it has lightness and it has delicacy. It's got a delicacy that gouache will never have. My apologies to people who think differently. I use more gouache than watercolour. But watercolour has a delicacy. It's the same with acrylic paint. It's the same with oil paints. they have a delicacy, but it's a different delicacy. None of them will have the delicacy that watercolour can have. It's beautiful and people love it in its own right for that reason, which is absolutely fantastic. But colouring right up to every edge, like for example, here I've left the sea. It's just white. Just colour in. People get the idea, and your eyes and brain will fill in the gaps. They'll look at that and say, the sky, it's overcast, looks like it's going to rain. The sea is the blue bit. You know, also, we're also pretty good picking that up. That's the blue bit. Then we've got some cliffy bits, some nice dark black rocks and so forth. And thanks to those, we've got this. That's why you put the lighthouse there. If you've got a bowling green lawn right up to the waterline, you don't need a lighthouse because no ship's ever going to come to grief on that shore. With this, we've got a rocky shore, we need a lighthouse. So again, leaving some gaps. It's what you leave out sometimes that's more important than what you put in. And you can make your watercolour very heavy. And like I said, I hesitate to use the word, but amateurish. If you colour everything right up to every border, leave gaps and allow natural textures to occur. Leave them alone as well. We can't improve there's an overwhelming feeling to keep fiddling because you think, well, if that's good, I can make it even better by spending more time on it. No. That's when you ruin them. Thou shalt not fiddle. That should be a commandment, and I'm petitioning daily for it to become a commandment. Leave it alone. Sit on your hands if you need to. Leave the room. Whatever you need to do, but don't fiddle, because it's during the fiddling process that you just go a step too far and think, can't take that away now. Stain the paper, it's there for good. So leave things alone. And even as a mixed media artist, you don't have to use all the mixed media all the time for all the things. You can leave gaps. I quite like this texture down here because I wanted a rocky sort of lichen-y sort of look. But if I lift that up a little bit for you, hopefully it's okay, you can still see gaps in there, and leaving this greeny bit here, this nicely granulated bit. That gives you get the idea. There's some wet rocks down here, and the granulated bits look a little bit shiny, like if there's water on them. Not that there's many shadows on a day that's this overcast, but then you've got the licheny bit, and then you've got some more green bits. Don't need anything else. You don't need to put a tree in here because you wouldn't necessarily see a tree in that position. You may do. There's some low-lying things, and I'm in Germany, and a lot of our coastlines have got trees right, well, what coastline we have, that is. Some of the wilder bits, and also further north in Scandinavia, the trees go right to the waterline, or almost to the sand line anyway, which is great, but you don't have to put them in. Just let the watercolour speak for itself. So, lecture over, rants all over now. Thank you for listening. Normal programming will be resumed as soon as possible. These are my favourite 5 granulating watercolours plus an honourable mention, and this is how I would use them in a mixed media piece. I do hope you've enjoyed that. Let me know. Don't forget to leave a like and a comment, because I do try to get back to all your comments. Sometimes it's a bit overwhelming, but I still try. And again, like I said, if you like what I'm doing here and would like to learn more, please do consider joining my Patreon. It's quite a happy place, actually. We've got a lovely community, so it's a good place to learn and meet friends, and yeah, so it's the best thing I've done in a long time. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I shall see you next time. Bye for now. Bye.